Bay Window can totally transform a room. It floods the space with light, adds value to your home. It really seems like the perfect weekend project, right? Well, today we're going to find out. We're digging into what it really takes to install one and trying to answer the big question. Is this a DIY dream or a job you should probably leave to the pros?
I mean, let's be honest. This is what we all want. This beautiful, perfect end result. A great view, a cozy nook, but getting here, that journey is loaded with potential problems. You see, the real story isn't just the window itself. It's the structure, the support, and the seal that's holding it all in place. And believe me, getting that wrong can be a very, very expensive lesson.
So how expensive are we talking? One source we looked at literally calls it the $3,000 mistake. Yeah, $3,000. That's how much some people have ended up paying in repairs or overages just because they underestimated how complicated this job really is. That number right there is exactly why we need to break this down.
Okay, so just so we're all on the same page here, a bay window isn't just a flat window. It's this 3-panel setup that actually juts out from the wall of your house. It's like a little piece of architecture. And that part that sticks out, that's where things get interesting. That's where all the challenges really kick in.
First things first, demolition. The old window has to come out before the new one can go in. And how you do that, well, it really shows the two completely different philosophies at play here. You've got brute force, or you've got careful, calculated deconstruction.
And oh man, this quote just perfectly sums up the DIY approach. This comes straight from a YouTuber who's tackling this whole project by himself. There's no sugarcoating it, it's just about getting the job done with what you've got. In this case, that means a hammer on a pole.
So what does that hammer on a pole method actually look like? Well, here's the playbook. You throw down some tarps, you smash the glass, and you just deal with the fallout. The YouTuber himself calls it an extremely messy job and warns about shards of glass everywhere. You gotta respect the honesty, right? It works, but it's pure chaos. And, probably not the safest thing to do by yourself.
So now, let's flip that coin. The professional approach is a totally different ballgame. It's not about speed, it's not about brute force, it's all about control. The priorities are flipped, safety above all else, then figuring out what you're working with, and finally, making sure you don't damage the wall you're cutting into.
And here's what that looks like in practice. Pros start by checking for any rot or damage, because you definitely don't want to attach a heavy new window to a weak frame. Then, they carefully take the old unit apart. They make sure the opening is perfectly plumb, level, and square. And this is absolutely critical. They check that the structural support is there to hold up the new header. It's a methodical process designed to stop problems before they even start.
Okay, on to the main event, the installation. And this is where it gets really interesting. It's a clash of two mindsets, following the manufacturer's super precise instructions versus the kind of creative, on-the-fly problem-solving you have to do when you're working at an old house that isn't perfectly straight.
You just gotta love this quote. Floppy jalopy. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? It's the real world of DIY. Things don't fit right, boards are flimsy, and you have to improvise supports or kickers just to make it work. It's resourceful for sure, but it's probably not in the official instruction manual.
And that kind of thinking leads to all these clever on-the-fly fixes that we saw in the source videos. You've got temporary boards, wood blocks nailed right into the roof soffit to hold up the weight, beefing up the seat board with extra plywood. Look, these are smart solutions when you're in a pinch. But the big question is, are they going to hold up 5, 10 years from now?
Because when you look at the professional side, you get something totally different. The manufacturer's instructions. They spell out exactly how to use things like engineered cable support systems. These aren't improvised fixes. They are specifically designed to suspend the window's weight from the house's frame. And they're all about one thing, preventing that window from sagging over time. It's a long-term solution.
Okay, this next one is huge, and it's something the pros swear by, the sill pan. It's basically a waterproof barrier that sits at the bottom of the opening. Any water that sneaks past the window gets caught and drains safely outside. The instructions are crystal clear on this. It's not optional, it's required. You skip this step and you're basically just inviting water damage into your home.
So let's just put it all side by side for a second. The difference is pretty stark. On one hand, you have engineered cables, mandatory waterproofing, and precise adjustments. On the other, you have creative supports, improvised sills, and what one DIYer honestly called hacking and chiseling just to get the thing to fit.
Okay, so the window's in place. You'd think you're done, right? Nope, not even close. This next part, the sealing and flashing, is maybe the most important.
This is where one tiny little mistake, one small gap, can turn into a huge, expensive problem down the road.
So the pros have this watertight checklist they live by. They use this special flashing tape and layer it just like shingles on a roof, so water always flows down and out. They use foam to create a perfect air seal on the inside, high-performance caulk on the outside, and they even leave a little gap for everything to expand and contract. Think of it like layers of armor for your house against the rain.
And speaking of sealing things up, not all caulk is the same. Not by a long shot. You can see here, based on recommendations for tough climates, silicone is the heavy favorite for the outside. Why? Because it stays flexible when it gets super hot or freezing cold. If you cheap out and use basic indoor caulk on the outside, it's not a matter of if it will fail, but when.
All right, that brings us to the big question. What's the bottom line? We've seen how the pros do it, and we've seen the DIY way. Now let's look at the numbers and try to figure out if the risk is really worth the reward.
So, let's talk money. And honestly, when you break it all down, the final numbers might surprise you. The materials cost about the same. Yeah, you save big on labor with DIY, but once you add in buying or renting tools plus getting permits, suddenly that huge gap in price gets a lot smaller. We're talking maybe only a few $100 to $1,000 difference.
And you've really got to watch out for the hidden costs. If it turns out you need to make structural changes or you want some nice custom trim, those costs can pile up fast. A pro's quote usually covers this stuff, but when you're on your own, every unexpected problem is another trip to the hardware store and another hit to your wallet. But then you have this. This is the reward. Remember the guy with the hammer? He says he did the whole thing start to finish for under $600. $600. Now that is some serious savings, and that's the carrot at the end of the stick for every DIYer. And look, no matter how you get it done, a Bay Widndow is a pretty solid investment. You can expect to get back about 70 to 80% of the cost when you sell your home. But here's the catch. You only get that return on investment if the job is done right. A leaky, sagging window doesn't add value. It subtracts it.
So after all that, it really just boils down to one question. We've seen the pros' careful process and the DIYer's creative grit. Is the pride and the potential savings of doing it yourself worth the risk of ending up with a floppy jalopy? That's a calculation only you can make.